All right, we are here on Madden and Benz Unfiltered. Sorry, some connectivity issues getting rolling here. Brought to you by the Ultra Genius Brewing Company. Try their brilliantly crafted brews and enjoy their full kitchen at their brewery in Ambridge, or try their Trailside Tap Room on the Montour Trail in Imperial. Treat yourself at Ultra Genius Brewing Company and tell them that we sent you for a free small pour on the house. Also brought to you by the Barber School of Pittsburgh, locations on Banksville Road and in Monroeville. Day and night classes available. Enroll now at bsp.edu. Barber School, yes. Google Barber School of Pittsburgh, bsp.edu. Mark, lots to talk about today, and from what I've been able to glean, just looking at my email inbox and looking at my feed on social media, I wrote a column about Paul Skenes not getting the support that he should be getting on these Sunday games. This is his first Sunday game that he's pitched, but the Pirates have done this before in potential series clinching games. They've rolled out a weakened lineup, and people are pissed. People not happy about what the Pirates rolled out there in support of Skenes yesterday at PNC Park.
Well, people should be. I mean, they really only shorted him two bats, Gonzalez and McCutchen, but those are two pretty significant bats, especially given the way each has performed lately for the most part. Reynolds DH'd as opposed to playing the outfield. That's no big deal. He hit the home run. He extended his hitting streak to 20 games. But they say they're a contender, but they don't approach situations like they're a contender. If you're a contender, you have Skenes on the mound, a chance to win a series, it's all hands on deck. You got to play your best players. I'd play my best players every game till they wore out, because better you fall by the wayside later than now. They're not getting any traction, Tim. They're just 2 games over 500 since Skenes made his debut, and that is improvement, but not nearly enough. So, yeah, definite failing on Shelty's part.
Yeah, and it's also, I think, a failing on Ben Cherington's part in the sense that, I'll keep using the analogy, he has to think like Jim Rutherford in this situation. You know, Rutherford always knew that he had a playoff team, but he was trying to separate that team early. I don't think right now this is a playoff team from the Pirates, but they need an acquisition or acquisitions for this lineup to become that, because eventually 2 of these 9 teams are going to separate to become real contenders for the wild card. And I don't think the Pirates are in the top group of that 9 to make it happen.
No question. Maybe 3 or 4 stay in the race legitimately and go over 500 and stay there. But like I wrote in my column for the Trib, which should be up any minute, they're on pace to draw 1.7 in attendance. Last year was 1.6. Once the summer kicks in, they'll probably get up to 1 point and maybe even 2 million. That's what ownership wants. Just to stay in it close enough and long enough to draw more fans, sell more merchandise, etc. You heard that nutting speech on Friday. What a crock of manure that was. Talked about managing payroll for the long term. You're making money hand over fist, you hillbilly thief. Spend some of it. You just got more from Sheets. So it's part of the long con, though. And you rubes out there are playing right into it because you think this team's a contender. But the standings right now, they're definitely lying. And in terms of what you said about making a trade sooner, not later, I hear people say, well, there's only 5 teams legitimately out of the playoff race right now. Okay. Well, make a trade with one of them and overpay if you have to. You're trading prospects, not from your major league roster. But mark my words, Tim, we're going to keep hearing next year and next year and next year until the Paul Skenes era transitions to the Bubba Chandler era.
Well, to underscore your point, look what the Padres did with the Rise with Miami, right? I mean, like, there's one of the teams that's out of it, and they got him even earlier.
Right.
And now they're the team that's holding on to the last wild card spot.
Right, but they want to win. They care about results. The Pirates don't.
So I want to hear from Pirates fans on this. I'm already seeing a lot of comments.
And Tim, you know what else needs to happen here too? Veteran players need to speak up about this. Even Skenes needs to speak up about this. Somebody needs to say, we're close, we need bats, go get them. Kutch should say that.
Okay.
Reynolds should say that.
Well, you all right, Reynolds is a good one to talk about there. I actually think
so is Kutch, because he was there when they were good.
I guess the only reason I was a little dubious when you said Kutch is that, well, Kutch could do something easy and not come back every time he's available to come back if he really felt that way. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but he's done okay this year. Seriously. He leads the team in walks. He's getting on base. He's leading the team in home runs. He's been fine.
Well, let's get to that too, because I know that's, some of the baseball acolytes that are out there that just, love the sport and follow the sport to the hilt, and by extension who are Pirates fans and kind of are predisposed to make excuses for where the Pirates are, will point to the fact that nobody is hitting in baseball right now, that there are like a dozen people total over 300 at this early stage of the season, and every team practically is under 250 as a team when it comes to batting average, and we're making too much of the lack of offense because no one has offense. But again, you got to separate yourself from the average then, because you are inherently below average, especially unless it's one of those three pitchers who is pitching.
Oh, no. I mean, to act like they're just one of a bunch of bad hitting teams, that's not true. They're one of the worst hitting teams. And one sidebar to that, people just kind of accept that, hey, it's a down year for hitting. It makes the game diabolically bad to watch. That game the other day that the Pirates won 1-0 when Reynolds hit the home run, people were saying what a great baseball game that was. It was crap. It was misery dipped in excrement. It was impossible to watch.
Yeah, I thought, the fact that Skenes is out there pitching in a game like that makes it more interesting just because it's him. And for once, the Pirates have that guy. And to move on that point for a little bit, Mark, you said on the podcast, I agree with you. I think he is fast becoming a front runner to be Rookie of the Year. Not only that, but also to be an All-Star, the Pirates All-Star, even if they do have other candidates, because, hey, Brian Reynolds is great in June. We get that. Keller's had another nice year. Skenes is the draw. Skenes is what people want to see.
No question. And he deserves it at every level you can. Colin Holderman took himself out of the running yesterday, had a bad inning, and his ERA doubled. And I'm not knocking the guy. He's been great, but that shows the tenuous situation of relief pitcher stats. Case in point, David Bednar's been automatic for how many weeks now? Closed out a ton of games, a bunch of saves, and his ERA is still up over 4, maybe 5.
Yeah, I think it was 12 of 14 where he didn't give up an earned run there going into this weekend. I know he's on the IL now, so we'll see how they manage the bullpen going forward. It's going to fall on Chapman.
But he's legit is the point. So is Holderman.
Yeah, like you said, it doubled, but it doubled only up to 1.30 yesterday. Right. And he had some kind of bad luck with balls sneaking through and all that. But anyway, I want to hear from Pirates fans. I'm also seeing, Mark, on this side here of our side rail, our comments that are coming in. Lots of people interested in your take already on Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Final tonight.
I think it's one of the most intriguing Game 7s in any sport in many years. You got Florida, who are the better team and are at home, against Edmonton, who have the best player in the world and momentum. And I don't know who to pick. I think the first 10 minutes, like they always do in Game 7s, will tell a tale, but maybe even more so in this Game 7.
You were of the opinion that McDavid will and should get the Conn Smythe even if they lose.
Unless Bob pitches a shutout tonight.
Okay, well, there you go. I think Bob is really the determining factor on this.
Or if Barkov would have 3 goals.
Okay, all right, because if McDavid should get himself a hat trick or a couple points, they lose 4-3, maybe I'd be more on board. But I think Bob is the real wild card here because he looked like a lock after the first 3 games. Then he hasn't been as good as the other guy in the pipes for the last 3 and might have taken himself out of consideration. And that's allowed McDavid to be in this rare position where they could lose and he could still be the guy to hoist the hard.
Only one non-goalie has been the MVP despite not winning. That was Reggie Leach for the Flyers. I want to say in 76. He was a drunk.
Well, Flyer, go ahead. Actually matches up perfectly with the profile there.
He could score, though. He could score.
Yeah, are they at all a destination for Jari, do you think, since every other team in the Metro seems to be making moves for goalies?
If it's the right deal, yeah, why wouldn't they be? No, you know what, though? They had that Andre the Giant guy in goal, the Russian.
Oh, okay. All right.
And now that Mitchkov's coming over, that forward that they drafted, and they still won't be any good.
See, the Metro and all the moves that the goaltenders have been bouncing around, and we talked about some of these already. I'm trying to figure out how that maps out and affects the Penguins with them bringing Nedeljkovic back. I'm still more of the opinion that I don't want to see Bloomquist and Nedeljkovic. I'd rather see a position created where maybe Bloomquist takes over for Jari in the season, just in case Bloomquist isn't ready.
Yeah, but now they signed Nedeljkovic. So I would trade Jari and have Nedeljkovic and Bloomquist split. That is a risk, but a reasonable one with potential reward. What if Bloomquist turns out to be the new Matt Murray?
What would be
the new Matt Murray, the old Matt Murray, the initial Matt Murray?
Yeah, the latest version, the latest iteration of Matt Murray, the Matt Murray that won 2 cups before he disappeared. What would be percentage-wise, Mark, roughly where you would want to hold on to Jari's salary? What would be a maximum of Jari's salary that you would want them to hold on to? Because they're going to have to hold on to some of it.
I'm not sure about that, but I'd hold on to $1 million.
$1 million? Okay, I have the 5%. That feels
because I
right.
think of another team. Maybe he makes 5.375.
Mm-hmm.
I'd hold on at max 1.375. I think he's a reasonable goalie at $4 million, which is what we should have paid him.
Are there any other guys that have bounced around that you think portend to how the Penguins might approach free agency, like Dubois moving for a goalie and Kemper? Speaking of goalie,
well, that's the weird thing, Tim. I finally kind of put my finger on why, you had the Markstrom move to New Jersey and the Kemper move to LA. There's only one starting goalie in UFA, and that's Cam Talbot, who ain't no good anymore. Yeah. So I think that's why the goalies, and you hear rumors about Gibson moving, about Saros moving, and I don't know if they will, but the point is there is a market for goalies.
Yeah, Saros was the one that caught my ear when I heard about it, and I don't
understand why Nashville wouldn't sign him. They have this affinity for goalies who put good stats up but never really win anything. He's like their second straight perceived franchise goalie after Rene. The only thing about him is he's small, and I hate small goalies, as we know.
Yeah, because when you're small, trust me, I know this, you're never going to grow, and your quickness fades. So he's going to be a diminishing asset the minute you get him.
And there's no way to make up for small.
Yes. Again, as I know.
Right.
All right, let's get to some football, Mark. One thing we didn't talk about on the podcast, Jeremy Fowler, now the second guy nationally to throw this out. Let's just zoom right by 2024 and go to 2025 and look at Dak Prescott as a quarterback target for the Steelers. That's
not going to happen.
Because they won't pay?
Exactly. That's just not going to happen. Why? I'll tell you why. But these national guys just talk about stuff that they know. Jeremy Fowler knows the Steelers aren't going to get Dak Prescott, but he needs something to talk about. There is such a saturation, so many column inches to fill, so much time to fill on TV and radio that they make stuff up. That ain't going to happen. It's the same as the perceived quarterback battle between Wilson and Fields. There is no battle, but they talk about it every single day during these 6 nonstop hours of yelling and mugging on ESPN because, God forbid, they talk about Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Final. I bet Stephen A. Smith, that show, doesn't even mention that there is a Game 7 today.
They might because it's a Game 7, but not with any analysis. It'll be tucked in at the end, and they'll just say McDavid a couple times and then go on.
Stephen A. Smith will say, I don't care about hockey. Nobody cares about hockey. We ain't going to talk about hockey.
No, but you brought up that thing about Justin Fields and the perceived quarterback battle. It was like manna from heaven for all the national outlets. Ray Fittipaldo made an offhanded comment about how Justin Fields didn't look great in mini camps, and I think anybody who was over there would agree with that assessment. But the funny thing was they took whatever information they got from Ray and just spun it into talking about how there's a competition when all the information did was underscore that there isn't.
Well, first off, Fields is a bum, okay? And all discussion about him should flow from that truth, okay? The guy played 40 games in Chicago, threw 30 interceptions, and fumbled the ball 38 times. He's a bum, okay? Pickett left. He was a bust. They brought in Chicago's bust. He stinks.
One media-related topic with football, Mark. Did you happen to catch this story that came out last week about how the Associated Press is now ironing out what the rules should be to vote for Comeback Player of the Year? Did you see this?
No.
So, they are encouraging everyone who votes to lean towards some sort of sob story, basically. You had to come back from injury and missed time, illness and missed time, some moment of personal strife and missed
First
time.
off, I don't care about that award at all. I couldn't tell you who's ever won it even once, but what's the point of this?
The point is basically like they want to invalidate how Flacco got it last year because they feel guilty that DeMar Hamlin didn't get it, is what it comes down to.
DeMar Hamlin barely played. He played a couple of snaps.
I know. That's my point. It's like,
if DeMar Hamlin hadn't gotten sick, hadn't had that attack, he wouldn't be in the league anymore.
Yeah, I think he played, 5 games last year?
He's a marginal player.
Yeah,
and they kept him because to cut him is PR death.
So they changed the rules.
And I'm happy the kid's alive and all the stuff you're supposed to say, but, that's what the facts are.
And I think what you're doing is, like, from a Pittsburgh perspective, like Russell Wilson has a fantastic year and he's not valid as a candidate for comeback player of the year. It would be a great comeback if he were to do really well and make the Steelers good.
See, Tim, you need to do what I do, is not pay attention to that award at all. Just I couldn't tell you any Lady Byng or Masterson winners for the past 30 years, except that time Letang won the Masterson.
Yeah, well, you know what? I just want to know if they're going to go to Tommy Maddox's house and take the award back now. Tommy, you got to give that back to us. Throw it back to us.
They could throw garbage on his lawn while they're there. Remember that?
I do remember that. Yes, absolutely. All right, let's get to some comments here. Oh, real quick, because you brought up Stephen A. Smith before. For people who don't know, you saw somewhere that he was saying no to.
Yeah, it's amazing. He turned down $18 million a year for 5 years, 18 for a 5-year deal, and he wants 25. And like you said on the podcast, how does the math work on that? Because I think even at 18, there's no way he brings in revenue to profit after you pay him $18 million. And the same goes, I'm not sure what McAfee makes, but it seems to me ESPN has Stephen A. and McAfee as vanity-type people, and then they fire people so they still show a profit.
Well, one thing that I wonder about those guys and how the math does work out, like, for instance, everybody knows, like, you're not making the revenue in return for all the rights fees that they pay out for these leagues, but the leagues, when they're on your network, they're good for cross-promotion for your other shows. They bring eyeballs in, and that's where you make up the difference. But do McAfee and
I don't see what Smith and McAfee have to do with that.
Like, that's my point, especially now with the way ESPN operates.
If they ran it the way radio used to get run, and thank God not anymore, radio and TV, they should fire them guys and bring in cheaper models, because usually the downturn isn't that big in the ratings, and you just keep bringing in new guys till you find the right one. There's another Stephen A. or Pat out there if that's what they want.
Let's get some comments.
But the thing is, now it's perceived that those guys can do it on their own, like Pat with YouTube and Le Batard with FanDuel. I'd love to know how much Le Batard makes with FanDuel. And by the way, I think his show's really good. I think for all the dumb shows that are out there, you got Le Batard and you got Pardon the Interruption, which is still on ESPN. That's the granddaddy of all this stuff. And boy, what idiot bastard children they've produced.
Tony Kornheiser still waving the Canadian flag at the end of every episode. Is that still?
I don't know. I don't watch it all the time because it's on at odd hours. Like that's the funny part too. Doesn't that kind of move all over their broadcasting grid because of other stuff? Like, or is it on at 5:30 every day? I forget.
I don't know. I don't know.
But the point is, those other shows, you don't even hear about PTI anymore, do you?
No, you don't. And that's where I was going with the rest of the thought.
It's so good. It's so good. The two guys, the format, it's so good.
You can also sell lots of advertising in the streaming and the bites, like when they chop it up into little bites, you can put ads on the front and back like we do on the podcast, for instance, and you can sell revenue that way. So there's more ways to create revenue, but if you're paying it out because agents for those guys are asking for that much money to compensate for that, at some point, you can't be working at a deficit.
Don't tell me. By the way, did you know the other day, here's what Pat's doing now. The other day at the end of his show on ESPN, one of the new WWE heel faction took over.
Took over his show?
They cut into the broadcast and put one of their catchphrases on the air. So I assume that'll continue.
Let's get some comments, Mark. Eric says,
one thing I will say for Pat does whatever he wants. For better or worse, he does whatever the frig he wants.
The last thing I saw, maybe this has changed, but I'm not sure if he wants to do college football anymore, right? Wasn't that still out there? Like, he
reportedly doesn't yet have a deal with College Game Day.
Right, yeah, and I don't know.
Tim, let me tell you, Pat really thinks he is the number one guy in history of sports media, and he can do whatever he wants. He really does think that. That is a sincere belief on his part, and maybe he's not too far from the truth.
Eric says, so after listening to the thieves running the Pirates, given the definition of urgency, I'm confident they're misusing the term. Based on their refusal to get another bat or two, I'm sure they meant stand pat and hope things work out.
Well, I heard Nutting talk about organic improvement from within. I heard him talk about long-term payroll management. And Tim, right now, my right arm is making a very familiar gesture. You can't trust them. I mean, I can't believe anybody believes one word he said Friday. One word.
You know, the follow-up to that from Eric, I guess another example of that urgency is to tolerate bullpen day nonsense instead of signing Trevor Bauer or another starter.
The Trevor Bauer thing's what I don't get, because he would pitch for the league minimum, $750 or whatever it is, and nobody signed him. I think there's obviously an informal blackball by MLB.
Yeah, and I wonder why he's not suing over. Maybe it's because he's still hoping to get in and he knows a lawsuit would do nothing to help him. But
I would think at the end of this season, if he has to finish it in the Mexican League, he will sue. But you know what's going to happen to him? I think one of the rich teams, that's the ironic part, one of the rich teams that loses a starter to injury will sign him.
Out of pure desperation when they're in it and they have no one else to turn to.
Exactamundo.
All right. Sean says, Game 7 NHL Stanley Cup would have collapsed by Florida. At this point, I'm truly rooting for McDavid. Tactically, Mark, has Florida done anything that you think has screwed themselves up, or is this a nature of play thing? I've heard you make the comment that maybe they've almost bullied themselves into being exhausted.
I think they're rattled at this point, for one thing. Badly rattled. But more than that, I feel like their physical style has worn themselves out, because there's two people in every collision. You hit somebody, you're taking, some damage too. And I think the fact that they played that way. See, here's the thing about hockey that's stupid, and it always has been. Florida doesn't need to play that physical style for 60 minutes for 82 games plus playoffs. There's some nights they should tactically pull back from that and just play finessey.
Like when they play the Penguins.
Their body's wear and tear. But we do the same thing every night. This is the way the Florida Panthers play. Okay, well, now you're about to choke. Right. And I think this will lead teams to consider whether heavy is the way to go. I think there was a big trend toward that way, but if Florida blows this, I think that trend could reverse.
Hey, the Penguins hiring Quinn, I don't know if we really talked about this all that much. What do you think of that hire? Is that just another Sully buddy coming on board?
No, I like that, because even though he is a Sully buddy, he will speak truth to power, like Taka did. So, by the way, did you see who was it signed Maple Leafs signed Mark Savard? Remember him?
As an assistant, right?
Yeah, Matt Cook, boom, boom, out go the lights.
Yeah.
They signed Mark Savard to run the power play. Okay?
Yeah, and he could play the power play.
Right, he was real good on the power play. He has credibility to listen to him. The Penguins should have got him. They need to get a guy like him.
Richard says selling hope saves the owner money. Trying to win offers Nutting no guarantees, and he's all about large profit margin.
That's exactly right. If he knew that adding payroll would win and get playoff games and that revenue, he might do it.
Well, they have
no
done
guarantee
it.
To that.
They have done it, but not until late, like in July. And like even people forget, I wrote about this on
I don't think they'll do it this year. Like you're talking about when they got like Derek Lee and Justin Morneau and
Bird and Ludwig and all.
Yeah, I don't think they'll do that now, because back then they had Quinn Hurdle, who was a legit manager to keep management and ownership honest. Derek Shelton ain't that.
And remember, they did try to add in 11 and 12. It didn't work. They got to 13, and Morneau and Bird weren't added till, remember when they had two deadlines? They didn't get added till the August deadline.
I think part of that too, Tim, was that they got to the playoffs those 3 years in a row, and I would bet it didn't lead to the financial windfall Nutting thought it would.
You mean like having to go beyond the wild card you're talking about?
I don't think they made that much more money based on having made the playoffs.
Yeah, because there was just one game in each case. And,
right, exactly.
I'm sorry, I take that back, because they did play.
Well, they made the division series in 13, right?
Right, so they had two there. All right, let's get to. I wanted to get to one more about Oh, here it is. Yeah, here's the baseball one. Keep this in mind that most major league players that have no trade clauses will have Pittsburgh as the first place of the list that they don't want to come
First
to.
off, how come your ball hockey league never brings a team to my tournament?
Oh, wait, you were talking about ball hockey before. Who was – oh, you were talking about Entourage. Who'd you coach? Kevin Conley.
No, I coached against Kevin Connolly, right?
Yeah, right, yeah.
Right. By the way, Tim, the U.S. team in the World Men's Championships, 3-0.
How many more games do they have to play before the title game?
Well, now the big boys show up at the playground.
Oh, okay. All right.
They've beaten Switzerland, Finland, and Italy, all who had pretty good teams because, like, Italy gets all the washed-up Italian guys from Canada.
Okay, all right.
And then U.S. just beat them in overtime this morning. What do you mean invite us? Go to streethockey-usa.com. All the information is there.
Go ahead.
And it's not an elite tournament, which I'm sure will suit you guys just fine. and now they play the Czechs in the final group game, and it goes to playoffs from there.
Frank says first and foremost, where did it go? Here it is. Frank says first and foremost, I'm not a fan, but it's football in shorts, and I've heard Fields can throw a spiral, and Wilson's arm is shot from a very reliable source, but I don't believe either analysis because it's too early. I believe the last one, not the first one. And by the way, Frank's part of the old Pittsburgh Steak Company gang. Oh, is that right?
Yes, exactly.
So wait, what are you going to do? Do they still have the March Madness poll? Or the pool, rather.
Yeah, but I don't – yeah, the $1,000 block.
Yeah. Oh, no,
they do it for the Super Bowl, too.
I'm talking about the Field of 64 bracket they used to have.
Oh, the auction.
Yeah.
Yeah, all the gambling that can be done, they still supervise. Yeah, I mean, some fraction of that group, correct. But I used to just get into that stuff because I like the dinner they serve, the party.
just go for the meal?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying it was $1,000 prime rib, but it was pretty close. They had that flounder stuffed with crab too. I love that.
All right, that's going to do it for Madden and Benz Unfiltered this week, brought to you by Ultra Genius Brewing Company. Mention the show, get yourself a free small pour from the Montour Trail Tap Room in Imperial. Or
no, wait, hold on. This guy says
what?
Bring a team down here to play us. Young man, only one coach in the history of USA ball hockey has ever won a world championship, and you are looking at him. I don't mess with small fry. If I caught you, I'd toss you right back in the water.
Also brought to you by the Barber School of Pittsburgh. We'll be back next Monday. Madden Monday podcast next Monday as well. Today's is up online at Trib Live.